My parents mocked me as weak while I supported my sister and her husband for months, so I made them face the consequences they deserved. Megan, my sister, and her husband Ben had been living with me for almost 4 months. They both lost their jobs when the economy tanked, and with no savings and rent they couldn't pay, I let them move into my house. At first, I told myself it was temporary, just a few weeks while they got back on their feet. But the weeks turned into months, and I was the one footing the bill for everything: food, utilities, even their random Amazon orders that somehow accidentally got delivered to my house. To their credit, they were polite about it. Megan kept saying how grateful they were, and Ben had this way of nodding like he was planning on paying me back someday, even though we both knew he wasn't. I didn't mind helping, though, not really. Family is family, right? But the stress was starting to mount. My savings were taking a hit, and I could see the plans I'd had for myself, buying a house, maybe even taking a vacation, slipping further and further away. My parents came over for dinner that night. I cooked as usual because Megan and Ben were cutting back, which apparently meant not even helping with meals. My parents sat at the table, enjoying the spread as if they hadn't eaten in weeks. Then my mom turned to me with that smug smile and said, "You know, you really should be saving your money instead of playing house with those two." I froze. Before I could even respond, my dad jumped in with, "Yeah, what's the plan here? You're just going to support Megan and Ben forever? I guess you're just too soft to say no, huh?" Then he laughed, that big, hearty laugh, like he just told the best joke of his life. My mother joined in, wiping tears from her eyes. They were laughing at me. I just sat there and stared at them. It wasn't even the words that stunned me, it was how amused they were. My own parents thought it was hilarious that I was burning through my money to keep my sister and her husband afloat. Not a word about how they could help. Not a single question about how I was doing. Just smug little jokes about how stupid I was for trying to do the right thing. That laugh stayed with me long after dinner. At first, I tried to shrug it off, but the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. They weren't wrong about me being soft, but the fact that they thought it was funny, that was the breaking point. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. Something had to change, and it wasn't going to be me. The morning after that dinner, I sat in my living room, staring at the door to the guest room, where Megan and Ben were still sleeping. My parents' laughter played over and over in my head, each chuckle fueling a slow burn in my chest. I'd paid their bills, fed them, given up my own plans. And for what? So my parents could laugh at me? So Megan and Ben could lounge around like it was some kind of extended vacation? I wasn't mad at Megan or Ben, not really. They weren't trying to be a burden. But there comes a time when enough is enough. I decided it was time to give them their freedom back, whether they were ready for it or not. When they finally came out of the guest room, I was waiting in the kitchen with coffee. Megan sat down and rubbed her eyes, while Ben gave me his usual half-hearted good morning as he shuffled over to the refrigerator. I kept my tone calm. No yelling, no drama. "Hey guys," I said, "we need to talk." Megan immediately looked nervous. "What's up?" "I think it's time for a change," I said. "I've been happy to help you both through this rough patch, but it's been almost 4 months now. You've had time to figure things out, and I just can't keep supporting everyone on my own." To my surprise, they didn't argue. Megan looked embarrassed but nodded, and Ben mumbled something about understanding. Frankly, it was almost too easy, as if they'd been expecting this conversation for weeks. But then came the twist. I didn't just tell them to go. I told them where they were going. "I already talked to Mom and Dad." I lied. "They are willing to let you stay with them until you get back on your feet. I'll help you pack and drive you over there this afternoon." Megan's eyes widened. "Wait, you mean Mom and Dad?" "Yes, Mom and Dad," I said. "They have plenty of room, and they'd love to have you." Ben shifted uncomfortably. Are you sure?" "They didn't exactly offer. When we lost our apartment—" "They didn't know how bad it was," I said, keeping my tone casual. "But I explained everything to them, and they're on board now, so let's get going." I wasn't sure they believed me, but they didn't argue. By noon, I had their suitcases in the car, and Megan was sending awkward texts to Mom. When we pulled up to my parents' house, the reaction was priceless. My dad answered the door looking confused, and when he saw Megan and Ben with their bags, his face froze. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between us. I smiled. "I'm dropping them off." "You're right. They shouldn't be my responsibility. They're your kids too, and I know you'd never let them struggle like this." He just stared at me for a few seconds. Then Megan stepped forward, and he actually stepped back, like he was trying to figure out how to escape. My mom came to the door next, saw the bags, and her jaw dropped. "Wait, what's going on?" she asked. I clapped my hands together. "They're moving in with you. Thank you for stepping up. I know they'll be in good hands." Before they could say another word, I unloaded the suitcases onto the porch, hugged Megan, waved to Ben, and got back in my car. My parents were still standing in the doorway as I pulled out of the driveway. All the way home, I felt a mixture of relief and adrenaline. I'd done it. I'd finally put myself first, but the aftermath, that would be interesting. The first sign that my plan had wreaked havoc came just 2 days later. I was sitting on my couch, finally enjoying a quiet evening without anyone else in the house, when my phone buzzed. It was a text message from Megan. "Hey, so Mom and Dad are acting weird. Can we talk?" I sighed. I knew dropping her off at my parents' wasn't going to be easy, but I was hoping for at least a week of peace before the complaints started rolling in. Still, curiosity got the better of me, and I called her. "What's going on?" I asked. Megan didn't hold back. Apparently, my parents were not thrilled with their new house guests. They'd been distant, barely speaking to Megan and Ben since they arrived. Meals were awkward, with my mom passive-aggressively pointing out how expensive groceries were, and my dad loudly complaining about how the heating bill was going to skyrocket with so many people in the house. But that wasn't the surprising part. What surprised me was Megan's tone. She didn't sound upset, she sounded amused. "Ben thinks Dad is actually afraid of him," Megan said, trying to hold back a laugh. "Every time Ben walks into a room, Dad suddenly remembers something he has to do somewhere else." I couldn't help but chuckle. My dad always liked to act tough, but confrontation wasn't his strong suit. I could picture him nervously avoiding Ben, trying to figure out how to handle the situation without actually saying anything. But then Megan dropped a bomb. "Oh, and yesterday, Mom was on the phone with Aunt Linda, and I overheard her say that they're thinking about charging us rent." "What?" I said, sitting up straight. "You're unemployed. How does that make any sense?" "Exactly," Megan said. "Ben and I were laughing about it last night. Like, what are they going to do? Kick us out? Where would we go?" I didn't know whether to laugh or be angry. My parents, who had mocked me for wasting money on Megan and Ben, were now in the exact same position, and they were already losing their minds. But the real kicker came a week later. I was at work when I got a frantic voicemail from my mother. She sounded panicked, talking a mile a minute about some emergency and begging me to call her back. I rolled my eyes, assuming it was another complaint about Megan and Ben. But when I did call her back, she hit me with something I never expected. "Your dad's credit card is maxed out." "What?" I asked. She launched into a tirade about how Megan and Ben had been using my dad's credit card for necessities, and how it had suddenly hit its limit. When I asked what essentials, she admitted that they included takeout, a new game console for Ben, and even a weekend spa trip that Megan had booked for herself as a stress reliever. "Mom," I said, trying not to laugh, "why did Dad give them his credit card in the first place?" "He didn't," she snapped. "They found the number in his desk drawer and started using it without asking." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Megan and Ben had gone from quiet house guests to outright freeloaders in less than 2 weeks. "What are you going to do?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "That's why I'm calling you," my mom said. "You have to take them back. We can't afford this." I almost burst out laughing right then and there. After months of hearing them mock me for helping Megan and Ben, now they wanted me to swoop in and save them? No way. "Sorry, Mom," I said. "You wanted them, remember? They're your problem now." I hung up before she could respond, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and disbelief, but deep down I knew this was just the beginning. For 3 months, Megan and Ben lived with my parents, and those months were nothing short of chaos, at least, judging by the almost daily phone calls I received from my mother. Each time she called, it was the same story. Megan and Ben were bleeding her dry, my dad was threatening to cut up all his credit cards, and my mom kept insinuating that it was somehow my fault for not keeping them myself. I stopped responding most of the time. They'd wanted Megan and Ben off my hands, and now they had exactly what they wanted. Still, the drama was entertaining in its own way, especially when I learned that my parents had tried and failed to get Megan and Ben to move out by threatening to charge them rent. Megan had called their bluff and told them flat out that if they wanted rent, they'd better draw up a lease. My dad didn't even know how to respond. But then, out of nowhere, the phone calls stopped. At first, I thought my parents had finally given up complaining to me. But then Megan called one night. "Hey, we're moving out of Mom and Dad's," she said. "Really?" I asked, surprised. "Where are you going?" "Well, back to your place, if that's okay." I immediately tensed up. Why? What happened? She explained that she and Ben had been taking online classes. He was doing something in web development, and she'd been working on building a YouTube channel and starting an online store. They'd finally found a direction, but they needed a stable place to stay while they finished. My parents, of course, kicked them out as soon as their 3-month grace period was up. I wasn't thrilled about the idea of them coming back, but Megan sounded different this time, more focused. She wasn't begging or making excuses, just explaining her plan. They'd move in for a few months, finish their classes, and then find their own place. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The first month was surprisingly good. Megan spent most of her time shooting videos in the guest room she'd converted into a makeshift studio, and Ben was glued to his laptop, working on projects for his web development class. They were quieter, more independent, and even started buying their own groceries. But the real shock came when Megan casually mentioned that she'd started making money. "Yeah, I got my first YouTube check last week," she said one night. "It's not much yet, but it's growing. And the store is doing better too." "Wait, what business?" I asked. "Oh, didn't I tell you? I started selling candles and skincare stuff online. It's really taking off." I had no idea she was doing all this, and I was even more surprised when Ben chimed in, saying he'd picked up a few freelance gigs building websites. A month later, they announced that they were moving out. "Wait," I said, stunned. "You're already looking for a place?" "Yeah," Megan said, grinning. "We found a nice little apartment downtown. The YouTube channel brings in enough for rent, and Ben's freelance work covers the rest." I didn't know whether to be relieved or suspicious. It seemed too good to be true, especially after everything we'd been through. But they weren't done surprising me. "We also wanted to say thank you," Megan added. "You've done so much for us, and we don't want to take advantage of you anymore. So we're going to start helping you too." "Wait, what?" I asked, confused. "Yes," she said. "You covered for us when we needed it. It's only fair that we do the same. We'll send you a little something every month to help with your bills or savings. Consider it repayment for everything." I didn't know what to say. After months of frustration, arguments, and financial strain, I never thought this would be the end. Megan and Ben were finally on their feet, and instead of taking from me, they wanted to give back. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a real sense of peace. Maybe helping them hadn't been such a bad idea after all. Not long after Megan and Ben moved into their new place, I got a call from my mom. I almost didn't answer it. After months of her complaining about Megan and Ben, I wasn't eager to hear what she had to say. But curiosity got the better of me. "Hello? What's wrong with you?" my mother barked. No hello, no preamble, just straight to the fireworks. Good to hear from you too," I said, already regretting picking up the phone. She launched into a tirade about how unfair it was that Megan and Ben were living comfortably now, while she and my dad had to deal with the mess they'd made during their time at my parents' house. "They blew through your dad's savings, they maxed out his credit card, and now they're living like nothing happened, while we're stuck trying to recover." I tried to stay calm. "Mom, they've been working hard. Megan's business is doing well, and Ben is freelancing. They're not living it up, they're just getting back on their feet." "Well, it's easy to be back on your feet when someone else is footing the bill," she snapped. "First they mooch off you, then us, and now they're fine." "And what about us? Huh? Who's going to help us?" That hit a nerve. "Are you serious?" I said. "You mocked me for helping them in the first place, remember? You and Dad laughed at me and said I was too soft. And now you're mad that I won't bail you out?" "That's not the point," she said, her voice rising. "The point is that Megan and Ben were your responsibility, and you dumped them on us." "Oh, so now it's my fault that you let them max out Dad's credit card?" I shot back. "You're the one who let them stay without setting any limits. You could have said no, but instead you spent 3 months whining to me about it." There was silence on the other end, and for a second I thought she'd hung up. Then she said, "You've changed. You used to care about this family." "That's done," I said, but I wasn't going to let her guilt me. "I do care," I said firmly, "but caring doesn't mean letting everyone walk all over me. Megan and Ben needed help, and I gave it to them. Now they're fine, and I'm finally in a good place too. If you're upset because you're struggling, maybe take it up with Dad instead of blaming me for your choices." She mumbled something under her breath and hung up without another word. The next few weeks were tense. My parents didn't call, and I didn't reach out. Megan noticed the change, though. "Mom's been acting weird lately," she said during one of her visits. "She keeps making comments about how happy Ben and I are, and how you've abandoned the family." "What's that about?" I told her about the fight, and Megan actually laughed. Unbelievable. They're mad at you because they couldn't handle their own mess. Pretty much, I said. Look, she said, I know we put you through a lot, and I'll always be grateful that you stuck by us. But Mom and Dad, they have to own their part in this. Don't let them guilt you into thinking you're the bad guy. Hearing that from Megan meant more than she probably realized. For the first time, I felt like maybe I hadn't just been a doormat all these months. Maybe, after all, I'd actually done something right. A few months after the blow-up with my mom, things finally started to settle down. Megan and Ben were thriving. Her YouTube channel was growing rapidly, and her online store had turned into a full-fledged business. Ben was working steadily as a freelance web developer, and they'd even upgraded to a bigger apartment. True to their word, they sent me a little money every month to thank me for helping them when they needed it most. But the surprises didn't stop there. One night, Megan called me with some unexpected news. So, Ben and I have been thinking, she began. You've done so much for us, and we want to do something for you. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Well, she said, I know you want to buy a house. We talked about it, and we decided we wanted to help. We've been saving, and we want to give you a down payment. I almost dropped the phone. Wait, what? You want to help me buy a house? Yes, she said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. It's the least we can do after everything you've done for us. And honestly, it's not just about paying you back. It's about paying it forward. You gave us a fresh start, and now we want to do the same for you. I didn't know what to say. For the first time in my life, I felt like the tide had really turned. As for my parents, things took an unexpected turn there as well. A few weeks after Megan's offer, I received a phone call from my father. His tone was unusually grave. We need to talk, he said. I braced myself for another round of complaints, but when we met for coffee, he surprised me. Your mother and I have been thinking a lot about what happened, he said. And we owe you an apology. I blinked, not sure if I heard him right. An apology? For what? For the way we handled things, he said. We shouldn't have laughed at you when you helped Megan and Ben. And when they moved in with us, we realized how hard it must have been for you. We were just too proud to admit it at the time. I didn't know what to say. My dad wasn't exactly known for admitting when he was wrong. We also want to thank you, he continued. Because if you hadn't pushed them out of the nest, they wouldn't be where they are now. And frankly, neither would we. That last part took me by surprise. What do you mean? I asked. Well, he said hesitantly, having Megan and Ben here has forced us to take a hard look at our finances. We were so focused on blaming everyone else that we didn't realize how much of a mess we were in. Your mom and I started working with a financial advisor, and we've actually made some big changes. It's not easy, but we're getting there. It was a lot to take in, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the same page. Now, months later, life feels very different. Megan and Ben are doing better than ever. My parents are finally getting their act together, and I'm about to buy my first home, thanks in part to the down payment Megan and Ben gave me. If you would have told me a year ago that all of this would happen, I wouldn't have believed you. What started out as a complete disaster has somehow turned into something good. And the best part? Nobody laughs at me anymore. A month after moving into my new house, I decided to throw a housewarming party. It felt surreal to be standing in my own home, surrounded by family who not long before had been at each other's throats. Megan and Ben showed up early, carrying a box labeled Housewarming Survival Kit, filled with candles from her store, snacks, and a bottle of wine. Think of it as a little something from your first investors, Megan joked with a grin. My parents arrived soon after, looking a little nervous. It was the first time we had all been together since everything had happened. My mom handed me a neatly wrapped gift, new kitchen appliances of all things. I know it's not much, she said, but we wanted to give you something for your new start. For once, I didn't detect any passive aggressiveness or hidden barbs, just genuine effort. As the evening wore on, I noticed something I hadn't seen in years. Everyone laughing together. Not the cruel laughter that had haunted me months ago, but real, shared joy. Ben cracked a joke about his world tour of family homes. My dad pretended to hand him a heating bill, and Megan rolled her eyes but smiled. At one point, Megan pulled me aside. You know, none of this would have happened if it weren't for you, she said. I shrugged. I think it happened in spite of me half the time. No, she said firmly. You held us together, even when we were a complete mess. Don't forget that. Later, as I looked around at everyone, Megan and Ben chatting with my parents, the tension of the past year finally gone, I realized something.